Harold Whitmore's black car rolled through the iron gates like a shadow. He wasn't supposed to be home. Not today. Not for 3 more weeks. The business trip to Singapore had ended early. A deal fell through. A partner got sick. Harold didn't care about the reasons anymore. He just wanted to see his home. His real home. Not the version the servants prepared when they knew he was coming, with fresh flowers and perfect cushions, and everything looking like a museum. He wanted to see the house when no one expected him. The mansion stood tall and proud, with white columns that seemed to touch the sky. 47 rooms. 6 fountains. A garden that stretched farther than most people's entire neighborhoods. Harold had built this empire with his own hands, deal by deal, dollar by dollar. But lately, everything felt empty. His driver opened the car door. Harold stepped out, his expensive shoes clicking against the stone driveway. He was 62 years old, with silver hair and a face that looked tired, the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. "Sir, should I announce your arrival?" the driver asked. "No," Harold said sharply. "I want to walk in quietly." He moved toward the front entrance, his heart beating strangely fast. Why was he nervous? This was his house. His kingdom. Yet something felt different today, like the air before a storm. Harold pushed open the heavy wooden door. The entrance hall stretched before him. Marble floors so shiny you could see her face in them, a chandelier with 1,000 crystals, paintings worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. But something was wrong. There was noise. Laughter. Real, loud, uncontrolled laughter that bounced off the walls and filled the silent mansion like music. Harold froze. His house was never loud. The servants moved like ghosts. His son, Charlie, hadn't really laughed in 3 years. Not since the accident. Not since the wheelchair. The sound came from the living room. Harold's chest tightened. He moved forward slowly, his footsteps silent on the thick carpet. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the living room door. He pushed it open, and he froze completely. There, in the center of his expensive living room, on the Persian rug that cost $40,000, was his son Charlie. The 13-year-old boy sat in his wheelchair, but he wasn't sitting properly. He was leaning forward, his face bright red from laughing, his mouth open wide with pure joy. And beneath the wheelchair, on her hands and knees, was a little girl Harold had never seen before. She was small, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with dark braided hair and a simple yellow dress that looked worn and patched. She was pretending to be a horse, making clip-clop sounds with her tongue, crawling around while Charlie's wheelchair rolled gently across her back. "Faster, Era. Faster." Charlie shouted, his voice full of excitement Harold hadn't heard in years. "We're racing the wind." The little girl giggled and crawled faster, making neighing sounds like a wild pony. Charlie gripped the wheelchair's armrests, his whole body shaking with laughter. Harold's face turned red. His hands became fists. "What is happening here?" His voice exploded like thunder. Everything stopped. The little girl scrambled out from under the wheelchair so fast she bumped her head on the wheel. Charlie's smile vanished instantly. The joy in the room died, like someone had turned off a light. "Father," Charlie whispered, his voice suddenly small and scared. Harold stormed into the room, his expensive suit swishing with each angry step. "Who is this child? What is she doing in my house? And why," his voice rose even higher, "is she treating my son like some kind of carnival ride?" The little girl stood up slowly. Her yellow dress had dust on the knees. Her big brown eyes looked directly at Harold without fear, which surprised him. Most people looked away when Harold Whitmore was angry. "I'm Era," she said simply. "I was playing with Charlie." "Playing?" Harold's voice dripped with disgust. "My son is not a toy. He's not entertainment for servants' children to crawl around and—" "She's my friend," Charlie interrupted. Harold spun around to face his son. Charlie's face had changed. The fear was still there, but something else burned underneath it. Something Harold hadn't seen in 3 years. Courage. "She's my friend," Charlie repeated, quieter but firmer. "And she wasn't hurting me. She was making me happy." "Happy?" Harold's laugh was bitter and cold. You call this happy? Having some maid's daughter treat you like an amusement? This is humiliating, Charlie. This is the first time I've felt normal in 3 years. The words hung in the air like smoke. Charlie's hands gripped his wheelchair, so tight his knuckles turned white. Tears formed in the corners of his eyes, but he blinked them away. Everyone treats me like I'm made of glass, Father. Like I'm going to break. The nurses whisper. The servants stare. You look at me like I'm something broken you can't fix. Harold opened his mouth, but no words came out. But Era, Charlie continued, his voice shaking. She doesn't see the chair. She sees me. She asks me to play. She makes me laugh. She treats me like I'm still just Charlie. The little girl, Era, moved closer to Charlie's wheelchair. She wasn't afraid anymore. She stood next to him, like a soldier standing next to her captain. I just wanted to be his friend, she said softly, looking up at Harold with those huge brown eyes. Is that bad? Harold stared at them both. His son, trapped in a wheelchair, but defending a servant's child. The little girl in the patched yellow dress, standing brave against a billionaire. For the first time in years, Harold Whitmore didn't know what to say. The silence stretched and stretched. And somewhere in that silence, something inside Harold's chest began to crack. Harold's jaw clenched tight. He pointed one long finger toward the door. Out, he said coldly. Get out of this room right now. Era didn't move. She looked up at Charlie, her eyes asking a silent question. Should I go? Charlie shook his head. No. Stay. I wasn't talking to you, Charlie, Harold snapped. I was talking to this child who clearly doesn't understand boundaries or respect or. Her name is Era. Charlie's voice cracked with anger. And she understands plenty. She understands me better than anyone in this whole giant house. Harold's face grew redder. Don't raise your voice to me, young man. I'm trying to protect you. Can't you see that? This is inappropriate. This is dangerous. What if she dropped you? What if I finally felt like a real person again? Charlie shouted back. What if someone finally treated me like I matter, not like I'm some fragile thing to keep away from the world? The words hit Harold like punches. He took a step back, his hand reaching for the wall to steady himself. Before he could respond, footsteps rushed into the room. A woman burst through the doorway, her face full of panic. She wore a simple gray uniform, the maid's outfit. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her hands trembled as she saw Harold standing there, his face twisted with anger. Mr. Whitmore, she gasped. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were home. Era, come here right now. The little girl looked at her mother, then back at Charlie, torn between two worlds. You must be this child's mother, Harold said, his voice like ice. Perhaps you can explain why your daughter was treating my son like playground equipment. The woman, her name was Amira, rushed forward and grabbed Era's hand. I'm so sorry, sir. I told her to stay in our quarters. I told her never to bother Charlie. Please, it won't happen again. I promise. Mama, no. Era pulled her hand away. I wasn't bothering him. We were playing. Tell him, Charlie. Charlie nodded fiercely. She's right. I asked her to play with me. I'm the one who wanted her here. Harold raised his hand for silence. The room went quiet instantly. That was the power of Harold Whitmore. One gesture, and everyone obeyed. Almost everyone. I don't care who asked who, Harold said slowly, dangerously. This ends now. Amira, take your daughter back to your quarters. And from now on, she is forbidden from entering the main house. Do I make myself clear? Amira's eyes filled with tears. Yes, sir. Perfectly clear. Come, Era. No. Era's voice was small but fierce. She stepped forward, placing herself between Harold and Charlie's wheelchair. That's not fair, she said, her chin trembling but her eyes steady. Charlie is lonely. He sits in his room all day with nothing but books and screens. Nobody talks to him like he's normal. Nobody plays with him. Nobody. That's enough, Harold interrupted. You're a child. You don't understand these matters. I understand that being lonely hurts. Era shot back. I understand that Charlie cries sometimes when he thinks nobody's listening. I understand that he told me he wishes he could just disappear, because at least then people would stop looking at him like he's already gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Charlie's face went pale. Harold's mouth opened, then closed. Amira covered her mouth with both hands. Harold's voice came out as a whisper. Charlie, is that true? Charlie wouldn't look at his father. He stared down at his hands, his shoulders shaking slightly. Answer me, Harold said, softer now. Do you really feel that way? A tear rolled down Charlie's cheek. Sometimes, he whispered. Sometimes I wish the accident had just finished the job. Because this, he gestured at the wheelchair, at the room, at everything. This isn't living. This is existing. And I'm tired of just existing. Harold felt something break inside him. Not crack, break completely. Like glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. Images flooded his mind. His wife, Charlotte, before she died. The way she used to laugh. The way she'd spin Charlie around in the garden, both of them dizzy and happy and alive. Then the memories turned dark. The car crash. The hospital. Charlotte's funeral. Charlie's surgeries. The wheelchair. The silence. The terrible, crushing silence that had filled this mansion for 3 years. Harold had thought he was protecting his son, keeping him safe, giving him the best doctors, the best equipment, the best of everything money could buy. But he'd forgotten the one thing money couldn't buy. He'd forgotten to let Charlie live. Amira spoke quietly, her voice gentle but firm. Mr. Whitmore, if I may say something? Harold nodded, not trusting his voice. I've worked in this house for 8 years, Amira said. I've seen many things. And I've learned that there are 2 types of care in this world. There's the kind that protects people from hurt. And there's the kind that protects people from life itself. She squeezed Era's shoulder. My daughter. She doesn't pity Charlie. She doesn't see him as broken or damaged or less than. She just sees a boy who wants a friend. And maybe, her voice grew stronger. Maybe that's exactly what he needs. Not more protection. Not more walls. Just someone who sees him for who he really is. Harold looked at Charlie. Really looked at him. Not at the wheelchair. Not at the legs that didn't work anymore. But at his son's face. And for the first time in 3 years, Harold saw something he'd been too afraid to notice. Charlie wasn't broken. He was trapped. Trapped in a mansion full of silence. Trapped in a life where everyone treated him like porcelain. Trapped by a father who loved him so much that he'd accidentally built a prison around him. I'm not broken, Charlie said suddenly, as if reading his father's thoughts. I'm not broken, father. I'm just me. Just Charlie. My legs don't work, but my heart does. My laugh does. My brain does. Everything else still works. He pointed at Era. And she's the only person who's seen that. The only one who's treated me like I'm still worth knowing. Like I'm still worth being friends with. Harold's throat felt tight. His eyes burned. So please, Charlie's voice cracked, please don't send her away. She's all I have. The words landed like stones in Harold's heart. She's all I have. Not the 47 rooms. Not the 6 fountains. Not the empire Harold had built with his bare hands. Just a little girl in a patched yellow dress who knew how to make his son laugh. Harold closed his eyes and saw Charlotte's face. He heard her voice, clear as day, saying the words she'd said 100 times. Harold, don't let your fear of losing him stop you from letting him live. He opened his eyes and made his choice. Harold stood frozen in the center of the living room. 3 people watched him, his son, a little girl, and a maid, all waiting for his decision, waiting to see if a billionaire could bend. The old Harold, the one who controlled everything, wanted to shout, wanted to send them all away, wanted to lock Charlie safely in his room where nothing could hurt him ever again. But something had changed. Maybe it was Charlie's tears. Maybe it was the maid's words about 2 types of care. Maybe it was the memory of Charlotte's voice echoing in his head. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe Harold was just tired of being alone in a house full of silence. He walked slowly to the leather chair by the window and sat down heavily. His shoulders sagged. For the first time in years, he looked old, tired, human. "Tell me something, Era," he said quietly. The little girl stepped forward, her hand still holding Charlie's wheelchair. "Yes, sir? When you look at my son, what do you see?" Era tilted her head, thinking carefully. "I see Charlie. Not the wheelchair?" "Well, yes, I see the wheelchair," she said honestly. "But that's just what he sits in. Like how I see your fancy suit, but that's just what you wear. It's not who you are." Harold felt his chest tighten again. "And what is Charlie? Who do you think he is?" Era's face brightened. "He's funny. He tells the best stories about dragons and spaceships. He knows everything about stars and planets. He taught me that Saturn has 62 moons. And he's kind. When I told him my goldfish died, he made me a drawing of a goldfish heaven with little fish angels." Charlie blushed. "Era, stop." "And he's brave," Era continued, ignoring him. "He's braver than anyone I know. Because even though he's sad sometimes, he keeps trying. He keeps reading and learning and hoping that tomorrow might be better." Harold closed his eyes. When had he last asked Charlie about his dreams? His hopes? His thoughts about anything beyond his medical appointments? When had he last seen his son as a person instead of a problem to solve? "Charlie," Harold said, opening his eyes. "Look at me." Charlie raised his head slowly, his face still wet with tears. "I need to tell you something," Harold continued, his voice shaking. "And I need you to really hear me." He stood up and walked over to the wheelchair. Then, to everyone's shock, Harold Whitmore, billionaire, empire builder, man who never knelt to anyone, dropped to his knees. He was now eye level with his son. "I'm sorry," Harold whispered. "I'm so sorry." Charlie's eyes went wide. "Father? I thought I was protecting you," Harold said, tears forming in his own eyes now. "After we lost your mother, after the accident, I was so afraid. So terrified of losing you too. So I built walls. I hired the best doctors, bought the best equipment, made sure nothing could hurt you." He reached out and took Charlie's hands. "But I forgot something important. I forgot that life isn't something to hide from. It's something to live. And by trying to protect you from everything, I protected you from joy. From friendship. From laughter. From feeling like yourself." A tear rolled down Harold's cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "You are not broken, Charlie. You never were. I was the one who was broken. Broken by fear. Broken by grief. And I let that brokenness trap both of us in this big, silent house." Charlie started crying harder now, but these were different tears. Relief. Hope. Love. "Your mother," Harold continued, his voice barely a whisper. "She would be so angry with me right now. She always said that life was meant to be messy and loud and full of scraped knees and laughter. She'd tell me I was being a fool. And she'd be right." He looked up at Era, who watched with wide, glistening eyes. "And she would have loved you, little one. She would have loved how you made our boy laugh again." Era wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "Really? Really?" Harold said. He stood up slowly, his knees creaking. He looked at Amira. "I owe you an apology too." Amira shook her head quickly. "No, sir, you don't." "Yes, I do," Harold insisted. "You showed more wisdom in 5 minutes than I've shown in 3 years. You raised a daughter who knows how to see people's hearts instead of their circumstances. That's not something money can teach. That's something far more valuable." He turned back to Charlie and Era. "So, here's my decision." Everyone held their breath. Harold smiled, a real smile, not the tight business smile he usually wore. "Era, you are welcome in this house anytime. Not as a servant's daughter. As Charlie's friend. As part of this family." Era gasped. "Really? Really?" Harold said firmly. "And Charlie, no more staying in your room all day. No more silence. No more hiding. This house is going to get loud. It's going to get messy. It's going to be full of laughter and friendship and life." Charlie couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears streaming down his face, a smile breaking through like sunrise. Amira stepped forward. Mr. Whitmore, I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you so much. Harold waved his hand. Don't thank me yet, because I'm going to need your help. My help, sir? Yes, Harold said. I don't actually know how to have fun anymore. I've forgotten. So you and Era are going to have to teach me. Teach me how to let my son be happy. Teach me how to fill this house with the sound of children playing instead of the sound of nothing. Era giggled. That's easy. We can start right now. She grabbed Charlie's wheelchair and started pushing him around the room, making hoarse sounds again. Charlie laughed, that beautiful, free laugh that had started this whole thing. Harold watched them, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt something warm spread through his chest. Hope. Over the next few weeks, the Whitmore mansion changed. The servants stopped whispering. Era came every day after her schoolwork was done. Sometimes she and Charlie played in the garden. Sometimes they watched movies in the theater room. Sometimes they just sat and talked about everything and nothing. Harold started coming home earlier from work. He'd find them in the library, surrounded by books, making up stories about adventures. Or in the game room, playing board games that Charlie won way too often. You're letting me win, aren't you? Harold accused one evening. Charlie grinned. Maybe. But you need the practice. Even Amira became more than just a maid. She became a friend. Someone Harold actually talked to. Someone whose opinion he valued. One afternoon, Harold found Charlie and Era in the garden. They'd built a blanket fort between 2 trees. Charlie's wheelchair was parked nearby, and somehow they'd arranged cushions so he could sit comfortably inside the fort too. What are you two doing? Harold asked. We're hiding from space pirates, Era explained seriously. They're trying to steal our treasure. I see, Harold said, equally serious. Do you need backup? Charlie's eyes lit up. You want to help us? Harold loosened his tie and kicked off his expensive shoes. Well, I can't let space pirates attack my crew, can I? He crawled into the blanket fort, his fancy suit getting grass stains, his perfect hair getting messed up. And he didn't care one bit. They played until the sun set, making up ridiculous stories, laughing until their stomachs hurt. That night, as Harold tucked Charlie into bed, something he hadn't done in years, Charlie grabbed his hand. Father? Yes, son? Thank you, Charlie whispered. Thank you for letting me live again. Harold kissed his son's forehead. Thank you for teaching me how. He walked to the doorway and turned back one more time. Charlie was smiling in his sleep, the wheelchair beside his bed just a chair now, not a prison. Harold thought about the living room scene from weeks ago. How angry he'd been. How close he'd come to sending Era away forever. How close he'd come to keeping his son locked in silence and safety. And he thought about what he would tell other parents if they asked him for advice. He'd tell them this: love isn't about building walls around the people you care about. Love is about opening doors and letting life rush in, even when it's scary. He'd tell them that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is listen when a child tells you they're unhappy, even if the truth hurts. He'd tell them that friendship and laughter can heal wounds that doctors and money never could. And he'd tell them that it's never too late to change. Never too late to say sorry. Never too late to choose compassion over pride. The mansion wasn't silent anymore. It was full of laughter, full of friendship, full of life. And Harold Whitmore had finally learned that this noise, this mess, this beautiful chaos was what home was supposed to sound like. What would you do? Now, it's your turn to think. If you were Harold, standing in that living room, seeing your child happy for the first time in years, but feeling that happiness came in a way you didn't expect or control, what would you choose? Would you choose pride and protection? Or would you choose to listen to your child's heart? Would you send Era away to keep everything proper and safe? Or would you let laughter and friendship into your life, even if it meant losing control? These are hard questions, but they're important ones. Because every day, we face choices between fear and love, between control and freedom, between keeping people safe and letting them truly live. Harold learned that real strength isn't about having power over others. It's about having the courage to admit when you're wrong. It's about putting someone else's happiness before your own pride. What can we learn from this story? We learn that kindness is more powerful than wealth. That a child's laughter can heal wounds we didn't even know we had. That sometimes the people we think are beneath us have the most important lessons to teach us. We learn that friendship doesn't care about money or social class or what kind of house you live in. Friendship only cares about two hearts connecting. And we learn that it's never, ever too late to change.
To grow.
To become the person your loved ones need you to be. So, here's my challenge to you. Think about the people in your life. Are you building walls around them or opening doors for them? Are you listening to their hearts or just assuming you know what's best? Maybe there's someone you need to apologize to. Maybe there's someone you've been protecting so much that you've accidentally trapped them. Maybe there's a friendship you've been preventing because it doesn't fit your idea of how things should be. What will you choose? If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And subscribe so you never miss another story that might change the way you see the world. Because stories like Harold and Charlie's remind us that we all have the power to choose love over fear, compassion over pride, and laughter over silence. What's your choice going to be?